Live.
There we go. We are live. Welcome to the Talking Crit live stream, part of Tavern Chat Podcast Network. Dare I say that, Mike?
Why not? I don't know.
We got multiple live streams. We got
This
one
thing's
thing
going crazy. This thing's blowing up, baby. Get on board. Get on board this train before it leaves the station.
I'm Eric Tenkar. With me is Bad Mike from North Texas.
Hello.
And we are your weekly deep dive into the world of gaming events, news, fiascos, non-news. Well, I don't know. We call it the OSR hex crawl. We go out of the OSR a bit, but we don't come into this with any list.
And don't let Eric fool you. We're not really that much of a deep dive because honestly, our research consists of N-World and Facebook. So we're not really. I mean, yes, we know some inside stuff that we're really never allowed to share, so we can't do anything there. But this is just for the general pop. You may have not have heard some of these stories, or you maybe just want our takes on it. I don't know. Personally, I don't know why you'd want our takes on it, but what the hell? I mean, we'll talk about anything, won't we?
Well, because we're wonderful. Everybody loves Talking Crit. You got.
They do.
Well, we already have a question from John Miller. He wants to know what's up with Dragonlance.
We're getting there. Calm down, John. Back it off, brother.
We got to warm the crowd up a little bit.
We're getting there. We got things to do.
But the Dragonlance thing is interesting because we did say back when the lawsuit was withdrawn. I mean, technically, what was the word? It was dismissed.
Yes.
Without prejudice.
Yes. So in other words, there was a deal worked.
Right, because without prejudice means that they can actually refile if there's it's not dismissed and you can't fucking come back. It's all right. We're going to withdraw our lawsuit against Wizards of the Coast, but we reserve the right to refile if Wizards of the Coast reneges on whatever deal we've made in order for this to go forward. And apparently, the deal is Weiss and Hickman. They have a license.
Well, they have a license through Random House, not through WotC. It turns out. I don't know if we knew that, but I saw a post by a old TSR insider who said that they don't have the license is not through WotC, it's through Random House. But WotC gets to say yay or nay, thumbs up or thumbs down. And so I think that was part of the problem is that WotC kept throwing roadblocks at him and saying thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down.
Ah.
And so I wonder if the way it was worded now. So for those who don't know, that Weiss Hickman, they made a big announcement. The trilogy will come out. Everybody's all happy. This means we're going to see 5th edition Dragonlance. But they made a statement in there I thought was very telling. And it was the one about a significant new protagonist.
Oh yeah!
Did that set off your alarm bells? That okay?
It set off alarm bells across the interwebs.
Yes,
because people are going, "Oh my God!" They are throwing this out, and it's going to be an appeal to the more activist aspect of the vocal community. Is that a good way to say it without offending people?
I think that's what I'm seeing too. I would tell everybody to slow down. We don't know because unfortunately, the way things are now, especially with COVID ruling the world and just everything that's happened last year, people immediately jump to the worst conclusion ever. And I've seen some amazing speculation on what a strong new protagonist means. Just like what? Where'd you get that? Because they're just conditioned to go to the worst possible, scenario, at least for them,
Right.
Bad Mike is going to be the villain. That would be absolutely the worst possible thing that could happen. I will admit that. But Weiss and Hickman putting me in one of their books would be a career ender for them. And it would be good for me.
It would jumpstart your career.
It would end my life.
In fiction.
I bet you some of those Dragonlance people are pretty serious, and they would not. That would be the end of my life. Boy, man, oh man. But no. So I saw some extreme speculation, but I have a feeling. I don't know, Eric. You might feel the same way. I think this may be the point of contention that they decide to agree on okay, we want these published, so we have to have a strong new protagonist. And whether that means a female protagonist, whether that means, I don't know, POC, gender fluid, it's all speculation. I'm not going to throw any of those out there because I don't know. I mean, it might not be any of those. It may be a child. I don't know. It could be a kinder. I mean, who knows what it is.
Not to get too deep into it, but I think if you are going to turn this into, are we checking off the right boxes for a certain vocal segment? And listen, everybody's entitled to their opinions on this. I believe that Tracy Hickman is fairly religious and faithful Mormon.
He's a Latter-day Saint, pretty serious member. He and his wife both.
Right. So I could see certainly a strong female protagonist. I could see strong person of color.
Which, by the way, they've had in the past, Dragonlance. Yeah. I mean, there was plenty of now there wasn't a lot of POC. There was the
you had Gold Moon, who was a strong female character.
Gold Moon, and then the barmaid. God, I can't remember anybody's name.
My God!
Tannis is like the only name it's coming to my head right now. But what is the barmaid's name? The one who just starts out, she's kind of like a zero-level fighter. By the end of it, she's kicking ass.
I know. I remember what you're talking about, and I read those books. My God, I read those books.
I'm getting so old.
35 years ago.
Tika, right? Tika the barmaid. Tika.
Yeah.
So Tika was in there. Gold Moon, but they also had the guy with the hammer, the blacksmith, blacksmith, and I can't remember his name either. Gosh, what was his name? He had a whole book about him, actually. He one of the later books was all about him, and I can't remember his name. He was missing an arm, and he had some kind of magical arm put on there so he could. And he was the one that actually forged the dragon lances. Theros Ironfeld. So he was probably. I don't remember any other POCs but him. That was the only one I remember was Theros. But so they did, it wasn't just all white male, dwarves, elves, whatever. And obviously, I mean, if you look at your fantasy, Tannis was half breed. I mean, he was a half elf.
True.
So everybody hated him. The elves hated him. The humans hated him. And so that they touched on issues that we're talking about 30 years ago. They touched on these issues, but they didn't explore it in depth. Maybe this is more of an in-depth exploration. If this is because none of those characters I mentioned were actually protagonists. I mean, Gold Moon sort of, but she was kind of she wasn't the best character. I mean, she was the character you look at the series and go, man, Gold Moon was just so badass.
She was a story element. She was the DM, like one of the DM PCs.
Sure.
She has to survive because she's necessary for the next act.
Now, they had a great Kitiera was the bad guy, and she was awesome. She was the bad chick, and she was badass. Raceland and what's his name's half sister. She was the bad chick, and she was kind of one of the main villains of Dragonlance.
Oh,
but she was Kitiera. So they did have some. It wasn't like it was a sausage factory, or anything. They did throw in other elements, but a lot of people have took it to say when they have a strong new protagonist. And see, we don't even know what the books are about. I mean, do they take place after? Because for those who remember, they had the first trilogy. Then they also did what was called the Test of the Twins trilogy, which basically the twins go back, Raceland and his brother go back in time, and they fight the first War of the Lance, and a bunch of stuff happens. And after that, a bunch of other people took over the series. They wrote just hundreds, it seems like hundreds of books. And then eventually Weiss and Hickman came back to write kind of a follow-up. I think it was called The Dragons of Summer, Dawn, or something. Anyway, it was all the heroes that were still alive were really old, and they had to get together one last time for one last badass battle. And I think the Kender dies. I mean, it was like really, heartbreaking. Some of the main characters get killed. And that was the last time I believe they've done anything with Dragonlance. And that was probably 25 years ago. I mean, that's been a long time.
But now they're calling this classic Dragonlance.
So this may be a story that, now, if you read the original Dragonlance trilogy, if you remember much about it, they skipped over a lot of things. They would have like things like, well, it took the companions 6 months to travel over this one spot. And then what some people would do afterwards is they would write a trilogy based on some of the things that happened during that, 6 months. And there was a whole series called The Companions about everybody stuff that happened to them before they even got together. Then there was a series that was based on, because there's one part where they like wander, like, okay, we're going to go look for proof of the gods. And they went and all wandered different directions, and they all came back. And that's how the Dragonlance series begins. They all come back to the end. They wrote 6 books about that. So this could be fitting into one of those spaces that, there's nothing. And there was a big long space of time between the original Dragonlance series and Test of the Twins, because Raceland ends up becoming head mage or whatever. And, yeah, Legends series, that was it. And then after that, bad things happen. So I don't know. But there's also a gap between that series and the last book that Weiss and Hickman wrote. So there's plenty of places you can stick in classic Dragonlance stories, So this could be something along those lines. Like, okay, what happened to him after Test of the Twins, but before, Dragons of Summer Dawning, or what happened between the original Dragonlance series and Test of the Twins. I mean, there's all, because I think when Test of the Twins begins, it's been a few years, and Tanis is married to Tika, and so there's all, there's stuff that, or not Tika. Who did Tanis marry? Tanis married the other chick of the series, the elf chick. I can't remember her name. So, God, there's more females in this series than I remember, man. There's tons of them now I start thinking about it. There's a bunch of, but so, yeah, there's gaps of time here and there. You could stick and call it classic, classic Dragonlance. Easily done.
Oh, all right. I was just wondering what classic Dragonlance, what differentiated classic Dragonlance from Dragonlance? But I guess classic is the Weiss and Hickman books, I guess.
I'm thinking what classic means is Weiss and Hickman wrote them. So we're talking either original series, Test of the Twins, or the new. I gotta find the name of that book. I want to say it was. Let me see. So the original series is Dragons of Autumn Twilight, Winter Night, and Spring Dawning. Then they had Test of the Twins, Time of the Twins, War of the Twins, Test of the Twins. Oh, then there was okay. So the last one was the Summer Dawning. God, I'm looking at a list. Oh my God, there were so many freaking Dragonlance books, Eric. I'm going down and scrolling down. Oh, it was called The Second Generation. That was it. That came out in 95. So that was about 10 years after they wrote the first one. And I think that was a bunch of their kids. That was the kids of Sturm and Tika. Not Sturm, Tika. Sturm dies. Sorry, spoiler. 40-year-old spoiler.
How dare you?
The one brother and something. So yeah, I remember that was a big thing. And so, yeah, I forgot they did Second Generation. That was about the kids, though. And that was about 5. It was kind of short story. There was like 5 short stories, and they all had to do with the kids of the Dragonlance. Then after that, a few years after that, 90. Well, actually, not a few years after that. Later on that year, they came out with Dragons of Summer Flame, and Dragons of Summer Flame takes place many years afterwards, and it basically follows something called the Chaos War. And I remember reading it. The only thing I really remember about it is the Kender dies at the end, which is really sad. But he kills the main dragon when he dies, and that was like a big deal. And so I don't think they did really anything past that. It looks like Weiss and Perrin did a book in 96, The Doom Brigade. I don't really know I don't remember that. That's about the time I'd stopped reading it. Margaret Weiss did The Soul Forge, but I believe that was a set in the past. I think Brothers in Arms is the same way. I'm looking at some of the titles here. So apparently Weiss did write a few other books with Don Perrin. Annotated. Yeah, I think that was really the last thing they pretty much did, was about 95, 96. After that, looks like Weiss pops in every once in a while and does like a book having to do with something called the Chaos War or something later on. But I take it back. What's this called? Dragons of a Lost Star. Okay, I forgot about that. I have that too. A trilogy focused on the fictional war set in the popular Dragonlance universe. Okay, well, I take it back. Weiss and Hickman were still doing stuff in 2001.
Okay.
So I'm thinking anything having to do with a Weiss and Hickman is classic. They're not going to...
Maybe another Dragons of the... I don't know.
I don't think we have any seasons left.
Right, well...
But I mean, they're not gonna read a bunch of other people's books and decide and figure out what they did with the story, because I think there's a book where Gold Moon passes away and the other guy. I mean, they all eventually die. Obviously, everybody dies. There's books about them all dying and stuff, but I don't think they're interested in that. They don't care. They're going to write something based on what they wrote originally. They're not going to read a bunch of other people's stories and write stuff about it.
Well, David Thompson's like, well, the amount is based on these new books, promoted by Critical Role playing them. No, however, I suspect there's going to be. We were talking about this last week. We talked about the Hand and Eye of Vecna, right? People are going to look at this, and they got money to spend on this shit. There is a market for limited release stuff, and you can be damn well sure that the protagonists, the heroes of this, are going to show up.
If the big names don't show up, people are going to be really pissed. That's why I think it's going to become somewhere. I'm reading here. Apparently, the Lost Chronicles trilogy that they wrote, that was about in 2000, 2001, dealt with Raceland between the books. So they have done this before. They've gone back in time and wrote a story that, hey, here's something that happened you didn't know about. This is between when Raceland became head mage and between the time he went back in time. And I'm looking, that's what that was about. So they have done this before. They've gone back in time they've gone back and filled in spaces. So I have a feeling this is another space filler one where they're going to fill in a space and find 6 months when nothing was happening. And hey, let's make a whole nother trilogy about these guys.
Oh yeah, and again, I don't know if Wizards of the Coast is going to put out. Oh, they might put out a Dragonlance setting material for 5e.
That'd be crazy to go along
with this, because there's going to be. But you can damn well be sure there's going to be collectibles, and there's going to be limited edition stuff out there for those with deep pockets.
Oh, how'd this guy find out that we're doing a show? This Robert Battleotto guy. By the way, so I will say about my brother, he's probably read every Dragonlance book there is. He should be the one on the show talking about this, not us, because I believe he's read every single Dragonlance book ever written. So even the just terrible ones. So, so it looks like everything worked out. I mean, it looks like the White Snake were going to get their trilogy. WotC's going to get their little boost by having Dragonlance. I'd love to know what the original brouhaha was about. Who knows? Because it sounds like to me, does it not sound like to you that White Snakeman won? I mean, I don't know what winning. I don't know what winning would entail, but it sounds to me like they pretty much got what they want, which is to publish the trilogy they worked so hard on.
And they're gonna get paid for it, I'm sure.
I'm sure they got paid. Yeah, they. I mean, I think they were going to get paid even if they didn't finish the trilogy. That's usually how these things go. They probably got paid anyway. So, who knows? But it sounds like they got what they wanted. I'd love to think it was because people were really pissed off the way they were treated. But I don't think companies necessarily do business like that. Yes, some do. I don't think WotC cares. I mean, really, I really don't. I don't think Weiss and Hickman have enough. I mean, yes, they have fans, but they don't have fans that are able to do anything to move Hasbro or WotC anyway whatsoever. I mean, nobody's listening to those fans. I mean, they haven't published anything Dragonlance, 20 years or whatever, 15 years. And they're not going to let those people, dictate decisions.
No, but there's certainly an audience you can tap. There's certainly a monetary fund to use moving forward if they can monetize this properly, and I think that we're going to see that. That's my feeling. Maybe not definitely a setting.
Well, it'd be crazy not to have Dragonlance 5e. I mean, that's just nuts. Especially if they're going to release a new trilogy. That's right there is, you have your way in the door right there.
Some janky movie. I don't know who's Joe
Manganiello, he dropped a bomb about a month or a few weeks ago that he's doing something with Dragonlance. So, he's an actor. So I mean, it could maybe he's going to be one of the characters in them. That'd be great. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe voice acting.
Be a step up from anything they've done so far. I mean, the stuff they've done so far has been awful.
He can team up with Lucy Lawless and do next Dragonlance cartoon.
The fact they haven't had a Dragonlance especially what the fantasy boom we've had, is just nuts. It's a ready-made story for consumption. It's got everything. It's got all different kinds of characters. Some of them die. Some main characters die. Sturm dies. The dwarf dies. Flint dies. I mean, they have a lot of deaths. I mean, it's not like everybody has plot armor on, right? I mean, crazy things happen. There's some big battles. I mean, it'd be great. It'd be a great movie. Do a little trilogy, man. You'd make some bucks off that. Because you already have a huge built-in audience, kind of like when, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you had a gigantic audience. I mean, your average person, my wife didn't know who Tolkien was or Lord of the Rings. She had no clue. So there's always those people out there, but obviously there was a hardcore, there's a hardcore Tolkien fandom out there. And so right. They had a huge built-in audience, like, oh yeah, I'm going to come see this no matter what, so the Dragonlance is somewhat the same, not quite as obviously not as big as Tolkien, but you got this huge, whole generation that grew up reading the books when they were kids, and they've been reprinted so many damn times that there's somebody out there that's picking them up for the first time off the shelf, right?
Right.
That's saying, oh, this looks cool. I've heard about Dragonlance, and they're reading it and going, oh, this isn't really, wow, it's written really bad, but it's really interesting. It's still interesting. It's not necessarily the best written book ever, but it's a trilogy ever, but it's compelling. It's interesting.
It's a good read. It's not high. It's not high end fantasy, but it's good. Chewing gum fantasy, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's like
a lot from it.
Stephen King always said his novels were the equivalent of a literary Big Mac. In other words, they're just comfort food. You sit down and read it, and he's not trying to be anything special. And that's kind of how TSR's fantasy fiction was. It was the literary equivalent of a Big Mac. You just sat down, you'd read the books. None of them were really that great, because I read a few. I read for the Forgotten Realms one, some of the, I mean, they were okay. They were just something to kill the time. It has to do with fantasy. There's dwarves, there's magic stuff, blah, blah, blah. But none of them were just rise to the level of, wow, that was, it's not like Joe Abercrombie or, any of the great fantasy writers right now. It's just stuff that's, it kills a weekend. You kill a weekend reading read a book about fantasy.
Right, and you go, oh, I could see this being my D&D campaign. I could see how this could work. Or, I could see my characters doing this. But you don't go to the point where it's like, oh, this is like Lord of the Rings. No, it's not that level, folks. It's not.
Yeah, unfortunately, John, you're right. Their most marketable character ever, Drist, will probably never see the screen because you're just not, unless you want to give the role to a POC, person of color, that'd be, I mean, I guess you could do it then, but even then, it's just, they are not going to touch that hot potato. No. So unfortunately, their most marketable character is off limits, which is I think it's hilarious. They can't do anything with it because they would offend too many people. So
yeah, you're right. Unless, well, maybe they can make him like dark green skinned or dark red no, that would offend American Indians.
Well, see, the problem is you can't have a person of color play Drist because the whole concept behind Drist is he's hated and feared in the surface world, and is squeamish as they are about approaching anything having to do with race or racism or whatever. They're not going to have a black character treated badly by people. That would just, oh my gosh. I mean, I guess you could treat it real heavy-handedly and make it some kind of diatribe against racism. I guess you could do that. That might fly with some people.
Right, fear of the unknown.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they're too squeamish to even touch that right now. That frightens them because they're never going to handle it the exact way that loud voices on the internet want them to handle it. They will never make everybody happy, and because they won't make everybody happy, their best strategy is to stay far away from it.
Yeah, that one's an impossible one to satisfy the vocal minority. Mm-hmm. And I think, and that's kind of the segue into something else that we were talking about. Recently, there have been a number of articles in Wired and elsewhere about how D&D is intrinsically, basically a bad influence. It is any kind of if that you can say. And it's basically being written by people who don't know the game. Like Mike was saying to me earlier when we were talking about it, people are not giving statistics. They're not giving evidence about what they claim. They're telling stories or recounting stories they heard from others. But these aren't. It isn't like you can say, "Oh well." I mean, I can say I think 80% of old school gamers are male.
You, you
I
can't
don't
you,
have statistics.
you cannot base a supposedly informational article on completely anecdotal evidence, because any of us could do that. Eric and I could sit here and say, you know what, I don't think that um, any female fan ever feels uncomfortable at a con, because we go to cons and we never see that happen. That's what's known as
Right.
anecdotal evidence. That's seen from our point of view, and that's only what we see. And that's what anecdotal is. When somebody tells a story about they went to a con and somebody was and this happened or this happened, that's anecdotal evidence. That's a story that may or may not be made up, but there's no evidence to back it up. It's not like a survey
Right. And
or
that's
any kind of, especially if you don't have names too. If there's no names involved, that it'd be different if they said, "Oh, well, I went to such con and this guy, name insert here, famous person said this happened to him." Okay, that's a little better. It's still anecdotal, but it's got, you could test it. You can go to that person and say, "Hey, Joe Blow, did this really happen at this con?" If they say, "Oh yeah, that's really did happen," and you say, "Okay, well then that's probably might have happened." But
right.
you cannot base these kind of very blanket accusations against D&D being racist or personist or whatever on anecdotal evidence. It just, when I read that, my journalism hack it goes up, and my red flag goes, whoa. I'm like, you could be saying anything. All your evidence is going to point toward the conclusion you want to make, because I'm not seeing any statistics here. I'm not seeing any facts here. I'm not seeing any names here. I'm seeing, I went to a con and this happened, and that's
Right.
all I'm seeing.
Right. Now, if I wanted to make a statement like, the overwhelming audience of the Talking Crit podcast is males between the ages of 40 and 59, I could pull out statistics and say, yes, according to Anchor, 93% of the listening audience are males, and about 65% are between the ages of 40 and 59.
Uh-huh.
But then I can go to YouTube and say, hey, YouTube, 25% of the viewers of the YouTube channel for Eric Tenkar, where we have the live streams on Wednesday nights and Friday nights, are female. So which number is right? Now, maybe, and also the demographics are different too for ages. While that older middle age is still the major age demographic, the second in line there is males in their 20s. Who would have thought that a live stream, a channel that doesn't talk about 5e, is actually getting younger gamers to watch? But obviously we're talking about something worthwhile. But the demographics change upon the way the way it's being presented too, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same material on the podcast that what you're going to hear live, and yet the audience is different. And I think that when Mike and I were growing up, we went through the Satanic Panic and the Moral Majority. And I've said before, I had an aunt that was a Catholic nun, great aunt, and she thought that my Player's Handbook and my Dragon magazines were all about learning how to cast spells, and I was going to get damned to hell. And she wanted to do like an intervention with me. But because she was reading the articles, and if you read stuff or heard 60 Minutes talk about Dungeons and Dragons, they were hit pieces, and they were hit pieces.
There was no stats, and one of the greatest things that Mike Stackpole did, who oh gosh, I can't remember if I think Mike passed away. I don't remember Mike Stackpole, but Mike Stackpole formed an organization that what they basically did was, because I don't know, at the time, all the Satanic Panic arguments took the industry by surprise, because they'd been making money hand over fist. They thought they were putting out this great game for kids and this and that. And then the Satanic Panic took them absolutely by surprise. And so they didn't really muster a very good defense. If you've seen the 60-minute article, they make Gary look terrible.
I remember that.
They just presented information very one-sidedly. But Mike Stackpole did was he got statistics. He went and found statistics. So whenever one of these satanic panic things would pop up, he would come out with something like 85% of people play our game are college students. 95% test in the top percentile of reading. I mean, he would have these amazing stats to counter anything. And it turned out the other side, the satanic panic people, had nothing. They just had all these anecdotal things. Well, this one person killed themselves after they played a D&D game and they were listening to heavy metal and this, and they shot themselves. But, it was all anecdotal. It wasn't really, was there a connection? Was there 100 kids that killed themselves? No, there wasn't, And so Azima, oh
No,
my,
no,
don't accuse me of that.
Corona Premier with a lime, 2.6 carbs. I have found that it works well with my type 2 diabetes, does not spike my blood sugar. And I missed having beer. Wine is fine, but beer is better. So,
so anyway, he did a great service because basically this convention would be going on and they'd hear from the satanic panic people and they would be like, oh, should we have this convention? And he would come up and say, this is all not true. This is a lie. These statistics that they're showing you are a lie. This didn't happen. And he goes, because this is before the internet. People couldn't just Google something. They had to rely on what these people were telling them. And he was the voice of reason. He and I think Gamma was part of it too. Game Manufacturers Association. They would go and they had this little stat sheet that said, no, people play our game are really intelligent. They relate better. It helps, kids come out of their shell. I mean, they're smarter. I mean, they had all these stats. And so after a while, people started realizing that the satanic panic people were just selling, they're just selling panic, basically. They were just selling, just this over-the-top view, and they didn't really have anything behind them. They didn't really have any statistics or anything. So that's the kind of thing that you pay attention to. You pay attention to people who are able to come up and say, look, I'm able to absolutely prove this, that, or whatever. And the problem is the articles that Eric is talking about that are coming out right now. And this happens every few years. They have to have oh my gosh, this is terrible thing. And so they're all read them and see how much in the article is actually reference to a statistic or as a name. And you're going to find out these are all fluff pieces. They're all clickbait. There's no names mentioned. Everything's anecdotal. It's just ludicrous. Eric sent me an article and I'm reading it, and every single accusation that was anecdotal. Well, we've heard there was this one convention where this happened, and apparently at this other convention, this might have happened too, and it just went on and on like that.
It might have, just like wasn't there was a convention where everybody went with open carry. I heard about it. I swear to God, everybody was open carry at this convention full of old gamers, and I stood up and said, this shouldn't be. Not that I went to a convention that had open carry or anybody really carrying as far as
What convention was it, Eric? Where was it? Do you remember? No, because there was nothing on there. They didn't say. It was all this, vague accusation.
It could have been in like Oklahoma or Texas or Louisiana. They're all the same, right? All these states are the same. But it's bad. It's bad, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen, even if it never did. Right. It shouldn't be allowed to happen. And that is part of the problem. And they are basically selling clicks. All right.
Sure. It's clickbait. Major clickbait. Come on, guys.
And your hobby is growing when the clickbaited articles start targeting it. And that's something to go, in a way, be flattered. When you become a target of a clickbait article, it's because you're important enough, you have enough of a community of following that they're like, hey, if we write this article, it's going to make us money.
Yeah.
This is good. This is what
it doesn't have to be anything of substance. It just has to, in the title, mention this. It gets enough people to click it, and then you just kind of go blah, 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 blah for 3 pages, and then you've already made the money because they've already clicked it. So all your advertisers that advertise with you say, oh, I got to click on that one. That's all it is. These are absolutely no substance to these articles.
And it's a shame. Again, on one level, you kind of have to say, hey, as players of role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons as the general umbrella, which the OSR falls under because we're playing older versions of D&D, We should be flattered that they're bothering to aim clickbait articles at our community. But it's not just at our community, it's at people that are, I'm going to probably say peripheral to it. The ones that aren't actively part of it, but are the ones that always complain about it. They're the ones that are like, yeah. Because they fill in the blanks. When you have an article that has no facts, just,
Right.
this could have, would have, I heard, somebody said, when you couldn't build a criminal complaint or a case criminally based upon what you're being given, but it makes like a really good story to get people worked up. That's really good for the people that will fill in the blanks. And people are going to fill in those blanks, and the blanks they're going to fill in are already color coded to whatever presumptions they live their lives with. And that's part of it too, because now those are the ones that are going to be like, on social media, oh, you have to read this amazing article. It's one thing when I send Mike an article and I managed to find it in a version that didn't link to Wired at all, which I thought was fucking hilarious. When I found that link, it's like, hey.
Oh, well, you know who wrote that article, right? You know who wrote that article, right?
No,
it was our friend Cecilia.
Was it? She's
yes.
writing Wired now?
Yeah, well, she probably just did a spec piece for whatever, and they, our friend Cecilia, who has never said a good word about D&D ever, the
poor widow,
Yeah. Oh my God, she loved. Yeah, poor gal.
And here's the other thing. Now remember, we're going to go back to an article that again just took stories. Yes, and Gil said that she wasn't allowed to attend a dinner function at GaryCon because Eric Tenkar was attending the dinner, and it wouldn't be what. And I had, not only did I just have to ask myself and everybody that I've gone to a convention with and shared hotel rooms with, I actually asked Luke, Luke, was I ever invited to a dinner I didn't know about, never attended? He goes, no, you never were invited to any dinner. I'm like, I'm not offended by the fact that I was never invited to any dinner. I just wanted to confirm, because apparently, according to this article, I was invited to a dinner and Gail was told not to go because she was never told not to go. So now
didn't happen.
I am not saying that Gail did not believe that this happened.
Yes, Cecilia fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker, man. She was all over that.
Well, yeah, because she was already pissed at me anyway. Yeah. So, but I was going to be the boogeyman of that article, whether I.
Well, she was pissed at you because you wouldn't give her an interview, right? Or you wouldn't.
No. She was pissed at me because I kept on getting more questions out of her.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then I would answer the questions on my blog, so she couldn't and then she was getting pissed, and I was just like, but I need to know where you got. And then finally, she's like, I don't like this. This is not how an interview goes. I go, this is how it goes when you're dealing with a cop. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I am not going to put myself into a situation where you're going to blindside me. Because what they're going to do is they're going to ask you a leading question, which is, do you hit your wife type of deal? And you go, of course I don't hit my wife. But what about on Sundays? What do you mean on Sunday? Oh, so you're saying that you might hit your wife on Sundays. You're going to get stuck in something like that. I refuse to.
Well, not only that, they'll ask you 15 questions and you'll answer it, but they'll only take one question that they'll publish about. And that's the one so they'll disguise a really controversial question among a bunch of really, it seems like, hey, so what did you used to do for a living? Oh, I did this, that. So you did that, did you ever do this? Oh, yeah. I mean, and then you're answering all these really innocuous questions. Like, man, this interview is going really good. It seems like it's pretty cool. And then they'll throw one question there. It's a little funky. And you're like, okay, well, did you ever notice that when you went to conventions that women were picked on or treated badly? And you're like, well, that's kind of weird. No, I never saw that. And then you answer a bunch of questions. Well, then all the article will include is Eric says he never saw any women abuse at conventions, but we know it happens because this. So that's the one question they'll take of all the questions.
Right. However, Stacey D stated online on Facebook that Eric Tenkar is a danger to women. And Stacey did say that. Never said why I'm a danger to women. But apparently I'm a danger to women, and therefore, since it's been stated, it must be fact somewhere. And
it's not a good source. Bad
no.
source. Bad source.
So now, it's interesting. And Michael Potter, I'm going to blame you for this because you're going to take me off onto a tangent that is not a tangent I intended to go on. But it's interesting what you say. And this is, folks, you're going to understand where I'm coming from in a second. The new rules on the coupling attribute bonuses from the races are fine, but the latest UA, I'm assuming it's an Earth Arcana, turned an optional rule into the rule and did not provide the alternative. Now, I've been saying for over a year, we are not going to be seeing a D&D 6th edition as you all expect a 6th edition to be presented. What you're going to happen is you're going to see stealth changes to the rules. Right now, it's not an alternative to the rule. This is how the rules are. This is being changed, I guess, in the online software. And I'm going to guess the basic rules, the PDF rules that you can download for free. What you're going to see is they're going to come out with a new printing of Dungeons and Dragons, a new cover, new layout, kind of like, 3.0 going to 3.5, where technically they are not changing the engine that drives it, and it's going to become backwards compatible with 99% of the work that's out there, but the rules are going to change. The default assumptions are going to change. Your character generation is going to change.
Sure.
But they're not going to call it 6th edition. And why is that? Because they've already seen what happened with Pathfinder 2. Right? They saw what happened with Pathfinder 2 was not the rule set that Paizo was expecting to be, where everybody's like, oh my God, new rules. This is awesome. No, it's going to be, okay. So this is just they're cleaning up the rules. Oh, it's still compatible with everything. But look, that new cover is cool. I'm a completist. I need to get the updated rule set. They're not gonna make it a new edition. That is a pet for folly in today's market. It might have worked in earlier generations. It might have worked with 2E. Certainly worked with 3E. 4E, worked with 5E, but that's a whole different change. But they're seeing what happened with Pathfinder, and that's too recent. That's too recent a loss. You don't want to kill the golden goose. You just want to make it plumper and have it shit out more golden eggs.
Yep.
So
I agree with all that. Yeah, they learned the lessons of Pathfinder 2.0 when everybody went absolutely ape-ass berserk and said, oh my God, all my books are no good anymore. And so they just stayed with Pathfinder 1 because, as one person said to me, I don't want to play, 5E light or everybody had a lot of reasons for not liking Pathfinder.
Right.
One of the biggest was that it wasn't 100% backwards compatible, which is nuts. But, it's a marketing decision. Like, hey, if it's not 100% backwards compatible, they're going to have to buy all this new shit. It's going to be awesome. So, no, it definitely, they definitely don't want to repeat those mistakes. They were not going to have that happen.
John Miller says that updates to D&D now are like an update to the operating system. You still got Windows 10 with never-ending updates, but not Windows 11. And you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly think that Wizards of the Coast is doing themselves a disservice by not putting the core books out in PDF. Because you can make these rule changes and then change it in the PDF and tell everybody, well, if you've bought your PDF through the drive-through RPG Now store or through the DM's Guild, you can get your updated, Player's Handbook for free. Updates are free. Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you've got everybody switched over.
Sure.
I mean, I remember the number of these are changes to the rule. This is not errata. It's not like we had this out for 6 months and we realized we fuck shit up. I don't know how many of the gamers listening remember Unearthed Arcana's errata. It's the one time I actually took pages out of my Dragon magazine and taped them into a book. So the errata for the Unearthed Arcana was fucking huge.
It was. It was 4 pages. It was 2 pages front and back. I remember.
Right. And I mean, this isn't errata. This is rules changing for, we think that's going to make it a better game. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But these are actual changes to the rules, not because the rules were broken. These are because we think we've made them betterer.
Uh-huh.
So I think that again, I think that's why we're not going to see a new edition. And again, you put out a new cover on that book, a new printing. I mean, theoretically, Tunnels and Trolls has been through what, 7, 8 print? Not Tunnels and Trolls. Oh, Tunnels and Trolls has been through 8 printings, 1 unofficial,
Yeah.
and Castles and Crusades, right? 7th printing, 8th printing. I forget what printing they're on now for the core book, but they never changed the edition. They've changed rules with this, but it's still, you can break out your first book, and it's not going to break anything if you have the first printing. Besides the fact that it's full of typos, but I mean that was early Troll Lord games. They've gotten better. Okay, time for me to catch up on some of the comments.
Oh,
The reason why Pathfinder 2 failed is because the people that played Pathfinder 1 is 3x, not 5e.
I heard that
is,
comment. We heard that, yep, from people who tested it.
Well, that, and you have a ton of support, third-party support for Pathfinder. And if you had 3rd edition material, it was pretty much compatible with Pathfinder. You know, you might have to up the power level a little bit, but it was pretty much compatible. The rules didn't change to the point where it broke anything. Pathfinder 2 changed the rules enough, from what I understand. Not an expert in Pathfinder, but from what I've heard, again, this is what I've heard, so it's not a science.
And it's all anecdotal.
It's all anecdotal. Is that the first edition stuff from Pathfinder is not compatible out of the box with Pathfinder 2, and for a lot of people, that meant that 90% or 100% of their gaming library was now worthless if they went on to Pathfinder 2.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Think about it. And a lot of the companies that published for Pathfinder 1 did not move on to Pathfinder 2. Including Frog Guy Games, because you have a loyal customer base for Pathfinder 1. You have hopefully a growing base for Pathfinder 2, but how willing these people are going to be to spend the money and the investment that a company has to make now to find people that can write for whole new games. What are you going to support? Your long-term customers that were playing Pathfinder 1, new customers that might be playing Pathfinder 2, both. That's a lot. You can only split your money so far when you're producing stuff. So
yeah. Well, we covered all that stuff. I guess nothing else exciting happened in gaming this week. So
what do you mean?
we just need to wrap it up. Oh, wait a second. we had we did have some stuff kind of happen, and Eric and I talked about this. We're not going to turn this into a bash GaryCon segment by any means. No. We did want to talk about it because it was pretty active on the internet. It was pretty people were getting very salty, and there was a lot of passion involved and a lot of over the top stuff, and so we did want to talk about it, but we're not going to sit here and bash anybody. We're not going to bash GaryCon, Luke, any of those people.
Right. And the intentions, as it was later revealed, and I say later because the initially it wasn't directly addressed on I guess on the original Facebook thread. Mm-hmm. But what it was is an email went out when people were picking up their badges. And it said, for the safety and security of our attendees, we are asking for a short video chat with you in order to complete the process. We understand this may not be appealing to everyone, but ensuring our guests are gaming in a safe space is our top priority, and we hope you understand. And the problem with this statement...
Okay, so that was a statement, so we're going to break down that statement.
All right.
It was said that, this statement's always been part of our repertoire ever since November. We've had other people say that they signed up November, they did not get this statement. Or that they were not told that they would have to register online with video. So there's two different stories about that.
Here's what I think the reading of that initial statement from one of the mods actually stated was, it was policy since November,
Mhm.
and they didn't feel a need to come out and publicly state it. It was an
Sure.
internal policy. Their statement was, when you go to a physical convention, you go to pick up your badge in person. Therefore, having to have a video chat when you pick up your virtual badge was nothing different, and therefore they didn't feel they need to announce that when you signed up as early as November. So I think that was part of the disconnect there.
That makes sense, but don't treat it like everybody absolutely knew this was in the cards, because they didn't. It wasn't
Right.
something that was stated out loud. By the way, you're going to have to register by video and come January or whatever, March, whatever. So it might have been part of their policy, but it wasn't an absolutely upfront stated policy. So
Right.
that's something I understand people would have a problem with that. The other thing was, I really think they miscalculated by mentioning the statement safe space. And the reason is because safe space is such a loaded term, and I'm sure they didn't mean anything by it. I'm sure they were just looking for a word to figure, hey, we want this convention to be safe. But safe space has so many connotations, and not most of them, to a lot of old school gamers, is very negative. It means, to a lot of old school gamers, a safe space means I don't want you to use spiders in your game because I'm scared of spiders, and so you have to do what I want you to do, because this is, I want this to be a safe space. And I mean, that kind of thing, or the X card type thing, where, hey, I'm having a problem. And yeah, I am not 100% opposed to the X card. If you want to use the X card in your game, fine. If all your players agree that's a great idea, go for it. It doesn't bother me at all. But it's going to change the game in a lot of ways. If you have an encounter coming, and the main encounter in your adventure is with a bunch of rotting zombies, and somebody X cards at the beginning, like, I just can't stand rotting undead. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to think on your feet. If that's we can have wild skunks. I mean, you're going to have to change it. So that's one of the reasons I'm kind of opposed to the X card, is it may force, because of one person, it's going to force. I'd much rather the DM be upfront about things and say, look, here's the deal. My Dungeon Adventure has a bunch of giant spiders. It has rotting zombies. It has extreme violence. If you don't like it, I understand. If you could not play my game, that'd be great. And I would rather they do that, and then to say, okay, I'm one person, I don't want this in the game. And look, some of this stuff's understandable. You should, if you're playing games at a con, you shouldn't have sexual abuse in your game. You shouldn't have necrophilia in your game. I mean, I can go down the list. There's things you shouldn't have in your game, because it's a con. Unless you're playing Lamentations of the Flying Princess and everybody in there is James Raggy, whatever. You don't need to have those things in your game at a con. So some of that stuff's common sense. So I'm not saying, if I'm the one person at the table protesting because there's, child slavery, then I don't want to be at that table. I'm like, if everybody else is okay with this, I'm not. I think I'm going to go out here. Y'all have a great game. But when people see safe space, they immediately go towards, this is going to be all fluffy rabbits and puppy dogs, and I don't want that.
There's that, but here's the thing: when you're coupling short video chat with you in order to complete the process with, we're ensuring our guests are gaming in a safe space. Both people on, and dare I say it, on the extremes, politically or socially, the far left and the far right both came to the same conclusion, is that this is a vetting process, and we are spending a minute or two making sure that you are appropriate for the con. That was not the intention. That's not what was going on. But the left saw that and went, woohoo, excellent. They should vet people before they come to a convention. They should let everybody in.
Yep.
And the far right was going, are you going to be asking me questions about my political leanings?
Yeah, you just asked me who I voted for. Or, I mean, people just immediately went to the way, whatever is the farthest away from the craziest thing you can imagine. They immediately went to the biggest, because that's where we live in now. That's just what we live in. I mean, that's just where everything is. Nothing's regular. Everything's over the top. And so, yeah. So what was the first thing you and I said we saw this, Eric? The first thing that Eric and I, we were reading this, we looked at it, I said, who has the time to vet everybody at a convention?
Right.
Nobody has the time to do that. So we knew there must have been a misunderstanding because we're like, you can't vet everybody at a convention. It's impossible. Because the example they use is, well, when you go and pick up your ticket, Eric, you and I both picked up tickets. Do they spend more than 1 second looking at you if they don't have to? No. There's a line behind you, 50 people long. They're trying to roll your ass through. They're not taking. So,
and I've never been asked for ID at a convention to pick up my badge. And I'm not going to name conventions in this case, but and this is somebody who, remember, my gaming name and my legal name, first name was the same, last name was different. I've had to tell them that, well, you might have to look me up 2 different ways. Nobody asked me for ID to verify who the fuck I am. And I've been like, I better bring something I've actually published I can now show. I'm also Eric Tenkar. So you've never been asked. I'm not saying that people aren't. Again, this is, how does Mike like to call this? It's my personal experience. It doesn't necessarily reflect that of others. Mm-hmm. All right? But here's the funny thing. The people that weren't on the far left and weren't on the far right, you know what their concern was? Their concern was, how am I going to schedule this? Or
what am I going to do my video call? I don't have time.
Right. Or even better.
I don't have a camera.
You know,
I don't
have a camera. I don't have the bandwidth.
Well, I mean, Eric and I are the most technologically savvy guys out there. You know that.
Yeah,
but some people aren't as technologically savvy as us. I don't know a lot of people in the game that don't use cameras. And so they're panicked, thinking, well, I don't have a camera. I mean, it just blew out of control so quick.
My bandwidth won't. People, I live in the boonies. I can barely get by on having a voice communication for a VTT. Video will kill it. Am I going to need video now for when I want to play? Is that now a requirement? Because that wasn't mentioned.
And some people were upset because they're like, well, this is through Discord, but I don't have Discord. I thought we were going to play on Zoom, but you have to register on Discord. Discord is where the main issue that arose from all these things going on is that there was speculation, immediately jumped to 11. It wasn't just 10. It went past it at 11, but there was nobody to shut it down. I mean, you know, Luke is not on call 24/7, guys, and he can't just jump on there and, you know, say, oh, here it is. But you need to have people that can. You need to have somebody there that can either, because the day of, Eric, did I not figure out a better way to say that? I told you, here's exactly what I would have said. And we were figuring out ways as this is going on, because this thread went a long way. Now, it's been taken down. This thread is no longer, which is the best idea ever. Just take it down. I would have too, because it got contentious. It got ugly.
It did.
It got really ugly, which it should have never done, because your people that are handling this should be able to handle it by saying, you know what, that's above our pay grade. We really can't answer this. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to somebody in charge or somebody and ask their question, and we'll get back to you. And then you lock the thread or you stop commenting.
Yes. It took too long to do it. And I'll be honest, too long. And even when they locked it down, it's because, well, we're looking for one bad actor.
Well, yeah, because what eventually did was people said, why is this necessary? Why? The people keep asking, why is this necessary? Well, we're looking for a person that caused an issue the last couple. Yeah, they couldn't say. Then they finally said, well, we had a person that caused an issue the last 2 years. And apparently they were in person at the 2019 show. And then they were banned from the convention for something they did. And then they still registered online under a fake name for the 2020 show. And they were caught. And so they didn't want to have any problems with this person again. But then you're left with the issue that, okay, so we're doing all this for one person, one bad actor you really don't want to get in? That's overkill, man. That's way overkill. You
know, so listen.
They shouldn't even have said that. That shouldn't even said. They should have said, look, there's a reason for it. We're not going to go into it. If Luke wants to tell you, he can tell you. Right now, we're going to shut this down.
Which was a wise thing to do. It should have been done sooner. Right. Especially if they were once the I don't know, accusations or the inferences were running on their own, and therefore picking up steam both left and right, because people going, I just read it. They're vetting people based upon politics. And
they're turning
better.
They're vetting. They're like, whoa, and then that got out of control. Like, what are they vetting on? Are they going to ask for this and that? Well, vetting was never mentioned. So that was all speculation. And then
it was a poorly written message to the community. But here's part of the issue. Yes, the Gary Con staff had this as an internal policy back in November, but they weren't telling people this was going to be part of the process when they picked up their badges. And I think that's an important omission. All right, because people were feeling, I put down some cases, Gary Con isn't cheap. If you want to go in for mega dollars, you can. And they were kind of like, I didn't know this was going to be a requirement when I put down my money. And some people are like, I want my money back. Because again, it's one thing. If this was just on the sign-up page, people wouldn't have batted an eye. It's when you get it at the last moment, then all of a sudden it's like, and
then when you don't explain it well, when it's explained very badly, and even Luke has admitted that the explanation was very bad. He said on his own page that the explanation was not right, but you can't have people do that. I mean, there's a reason that the guy I run North Texas with, Doug, is not allowed anywhere in social media because he's bad at it. He's really bad at it.
Right.
He is. He's terrible at it. And so that's why I handle all social media. But they need to do, I don't know, I think Luke may need to look into doing the same thing and hiring a professional, somebody to run all the questions through, because I'm sitting here reading this thread. I'm thinking, does this guy work for Gary Con? He acts like the stuff he's saying seems very official, but then this guy sounds, I mean, I didn't know who was working for Gary Con, who was just giving their opinion, because they were, there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, we have to do this, and if you don't like it, then just stay home. Go to hell.
Go pound sand.
Go pound sand. I'm like, well, that person can't be working for Gary Con, can they? I mean, you wouldn't tell a customer that. You would tell that, but I didn't know. I didn't know. And so
you don't know, and nobody was. Here's the thing: they weren't being corrected.
No.
And when they're not being corrected, then it's like, oh, maybe they do, because Gary Con has a large staff involved. It's a large convention. There are a large number of staff.
Sure.
A lot of volunteers that work with them, and it certainly became the thread became untenable. And I'm glad they shut it down. But I posted about it because I was left looking at, this is a vetting process.
We had questions. Eric and I both had questions. We're like,
nobody said it wasn't. Nobody said it wasn't the vetting process. They just said we're looking for one person, but that's not saying, okay, so how are you going to look for this person? Or what questions are you going to ask? Well, Luke messaged me. This all happened last Friday, by the way. Luke messaged me, and this was what the plan was. ID buyer to badge, so right person has right badge. Link badge to Discord ID to help lost players get to right GM. Verify is voice over internet protocol or webcam. No interview or vet process. No time or desire to do that. Just like a badge check-in. That should have been spelled out with that initial message, and that would have been but then here's the second part. Second purpose is to help deter bad actors and ban those that are proven bad actors from future events. The rules are common policy, and that's been the case for years, so nothing new there. Gamers are good people by and large, but any big group may have some bad actors, and it's the responsibility to take prudent action to deter, dissuade, and limit those bad actions, which is, again, it's a good reason. It's a valid reason. It was not presented that way. And I think that this could have been a non-issue with two simple steps. It should have been announced when people got their badges, and it should have been, the process should have been described. It's not like, oh, we're going to have like you got to check in with us for a short video chat. No, we just want you to register, make sure that your name's associated with the account. I mean, it's really simple. And there was just too much there was a lot of speculation going on that wasn't deserved, because that's just what we do. I mean, I'm going to share. I want two things real quick, Eric. I want to share a short story about what happened, but I also want to say there's an argument going on in the comments about Satine. Let me tell you something about Satine Phoenix. I have respect for her because, yes, I wouldn't say she's a porn star. She did porn, and you may be able to find porn of her still online. But I've met her at conventions. She doesn't, like, she talks about porn or mentions it. I mean, I would feel
I don't even know why you talk about with it. People are allowed to make mistakes or have a different lifestyle and change. And she seems like she's changed quite a bit. I mean, that her lifestyle is no longer that lifestyle. So I don't have a problem, Satine. She worked for WotC. She's who she is. She's a colorful personality. Our hobby's full of colorful personalities.
Oh God, yeah.
Now, if she was still being in porn and still pushing a porn lifestyle, I would have major issues with that. But she's not. That's part of her past. We've all made mistakes in your past. If you haven't, you're either number one, you're lying, or number two, you've led a perfect life, and I congratulate you on that. But I know myself and many other people, we've done things that we're not proud of in our past, and you move past it. To me, it seems like she's reinvented herself. I'm really amazed that she's reinvented herself.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, I mean, it'd be like, do you think that somebody that commits a crime should never be hired again? I mean, should, you know, I mean, what if I mean, there's all kinds of questions you have to ask. If you say that Satine should never work for a company promoting games again, then you have to ask yourself all kinds of other things. I mean, should somebody that commits a crime, you know, they went to jail for, not be able to do that? Well, no, as a society, we believe in, even though prison is mostly a punishment, it's also supposed to be a rehabilitative process, you know? So hopefully when you get out of jail, that's what the whole point of going to prison is, and having and serving your sentence is. You're supposedly going to wipe the slate clean. Then I come out, I've got a clean slate. I want to get on with my life. I want to do this, that. Look, I know people in our hobby, and I will not name their names at all, who have the people that come to our con who have prison records. And
Yeah.
you would be shocked if you knew some of them. I will not say. I had a person come to me and said, "I just wanted you to know before I come to your con that I did this. And it wasn't child abuse, it wasn't armed robbery, but it was a crime." And they said, "I did my time. And is this going to be an issue?" I said, "I don't think so. This is something that happened 10 years ago. You serve whatever 2 or 3 years in prison. You're past it. You know, we've all made mistakes. I mean, God knows I will say that I drove drunk twice in my life. I could have killed a family. I mean, there's all kinds of things awful that could have happened. I'm not proud of myself for doing it. I was a stupid kid, but you know, it could have changed my entire life if something bad had happened, you know? And so does that mean I should never be able to do something because I did do something really more, you know, really questionable at one point? No, it means that I learned my lesson, and I thought, you know, this is just ridiculous. I can't do this. I can't ever do this. We all have moments like that. I think Satine, I mean, I've talked to her. She's, you know, she's a nice person, and she runs a good D&D game from what I understand, but she's just, you know, she's reinvented herself. I'm actually pretty impressed by the way she's reinvented herself. She doesn't dress like a slut at conventions. She just dresses normally. She looks like a normal gamer.
No. She dresses with the ears and all that stuff on the train.
She's not an adult. She's not an adult film actor.
No. You think she dresses normally? No, she dresses like a cosplayer.
Right. Cosplaying is totally cosplaying is different. Is totally different. Yeah. People dress like people dress weird as cosplayers. That just happens. But you know, she doesn't promote a porn lifestyle. She doesn't talk about her porn. She does. I mean, she's, like I said, it may be something she did in the past that maybe she's not proud of now. I don't know. I don't ask her about it. I have no clue. But you know, I think if you look at somebody, and look, I can tell you, look up some stories about Peter Atkinson. I'm not even going to throw any out here because he may have a lawyer that's going to kick my ass in or something. But look at some of the stuff that Peter Atkinson. Peter Atkinson's ex-wife told some interesting stories about him. You can find them on the internet. Some of the stuff he did's not. I think Satine's pretty mild compared to some of the stuff Peter was into, apparently.
You know, you can look at other, quote, heroes within our gaming community, and you can, and some of them are very open about their past. And Ernie Gygax, the first, will say that he was not a saint.
Ernie had a very open and very sobering email about a year ago about his life, and in this a post to his account, he admits to lots of drug use, a lot of drug use. He admits that Gary was a very abusive father in some ways. I mean, loving, but also he gave Ernie a beer when he was like 8 or something, wasn't it, or 10? I mean, and he blames his dad for his alcoholism. Ernie was major to drugs for the better part of 20 years, 20, 30 years. I mean, Should we have
And
Ernie
Gary,
not associated with the hobby anymore? Because Ernie was, getting loaded every weekend, and
yeah.
or Ernie admits he went to bars and picked up ladies all the time, did all kinds of stuff. I mean, come on, man! Everybody's got some skeletons going there.
I've spoken with Ernie, and he was open about it. And basically, when his father went out to the West Coast, Ernie joined him, and every party that Gary went to, Ernie was there, and he was just like, it was not a place to be if you intended to be sober. And he goes,
Look at some of the things Gary's been accused of, and I have heard from extremely reliable sources things did happen, and that's also drug use and cheating on his wife. Should we just erase Gary from the hobby and say, we need to scratch his name off these books because he didn't live an absolutely, 100% Jehovah's Witness, life or whatever. And so I don't. I have no problem with Satine at all. I mean, and they're not marketing her as a porn star. And honestly, I know if you're worried about kids, no 10-year-old kid knows that Satine was a porn star. She doesn't act like a porn star. I guess they did a deep dive on the internet that they could find it. But, you do a deep dive on the internet, you're going to find a lot of ugly stuff about a lot of the Gygaxes, about some of the founding fathers of the hobby, some of the people that are still around promoting hobby. They've been, I guess, forgiven for the things they've done. I'm not mentioning any names here because you do your own research, but this is not this is like any other hobby. There's people in the hobby that aren't great people, but as long as they're not doing bad stuff now and they've repented and they're moving on with life. I mean, look how much Ernie's changed his life. It's amazing. The dude was about to die, Eric.
Yes,
he was. I was close to death. I mean, he
was hospitalized.
Would go around with a convention. His face was red. His nose was red because he would drink constantly. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't walk anymore. And he was a major substance abuser, and he has absolutely turned his life around. That's amazing. I'm not going to hold that against him that he really messed his life up for basically 30 years, and so I understand where you're coming from, Shadzar, but it just, look, we can't be judging people in the hobby off this and that because it never stops. It'll never stop. I mean, Zach S got canceled. Zach S got canceled because, look, I don't even want to go into that. That's a he said, she said. And I know that we want to believe Mandy because Zach is a piece of garbage human being, and he is. He's absolutely a piece of garbage human being. But it's still he said, she said, because there's some people that say that stuff didn't happen. There's people that say it did happen. Mandy says it did happen. Some of her friends said it didn't happen, like Stacy. Then all of a sudden they said it did happen, like Stacy. I mean, so I don't know what Zach didn't do. He's a miserable human being. But, and then I guess one of Zach's major problems is he'll never apologize for anything. I guarantee if he came out tomorrow and apologized for a bunch of things he didn't do, we'd probably grudgingly give him a second chance because he is a talented dude. He's extremely talented. So anyway, I don't even know why we're talking about Satine, but it's just it's
a fucking hex scroll.
It's a non-issue. It's really a non-issue with me.
Here's the thing. I mean, listen, I might have issues with certain people in the hobby. I certainly have no love for Zach Smith. I've said that in the past.
Oh yeah.
However,
his number one fan right here. Yeah.
I think Red and Pleasant Land is probably one of the top 3 modern releases in the OSR, or maybe in gaming in general. It is fucking amazing. All right. I might think that Zach is a piece of shit on a personal level toward me, my interactions with him, and how he interacts in public with others. I don't know how him and Mandy, how that was going down. Wasn't there. Again, we
don't know. All anecdotal. We have no clue.
Right.
None of us here have any clue what happened.
I don't believe in unpersoning. I separate the creator from the work because there's been some, in retrospect, we look back on the hobbies that we love, and whether it's movies or literature, comics, whatever, the RPG hobby, and you look back and you go, wow, this person was a piece of shit and everything they did has no value now. I can't even look at it. Then you're giving up on some of the best material in that field because you've labeled that person a non-person. Oh, I can't read any of the Cthulhu mythos because H.P. Lovecraft was a piece of shit. Well, you know what? He probably was a piece of shit. However, are you now going to say that the Cthulhu mythos and everything that's derived from it is verboten because the creator person is a piece of shit, but the works they did was inspirational? You know what? Obviously, their works were inspirational. Maybe they were inspirational because they were a turmoil piece of shit. I don't know. But
I mean, if it comes out,
has value on its own.
If it comes out tomorrow that, let's say, Stephen King, got one of the most prolific writers of the last 50 years, he comes out tomorrow. He shoots himself in the head and says, "I admit I killed a kid 25 years ago and covered it up, and I can't live with myself." Do we just merely take all of Stephen King's books and throw them in the trash and say, "Well, that's it. I can never enjoy a Stephen King book again because he killed somebody"? I mean, it's awful and miserable, but you still have to say, okay, well, did he wrote a book? He's a writer. There's some crimes you can't. I mean, Roman Polanski's a piece of garbage. I probably wouldn't ever watch a piece of, or I would never watch anything he did. But you know what? I love Chinatown. Chinatown's a great fucking movie. It is. It's an incredible movie. But Roman Polanski's a piece of garbage. He's an absolute piece of shit. But he created a work of art. And I'm not going to deny myself. Telling people that, oh yeah, never see Chinatown because Roman Polanski directed. He molested a girl. He's awful human being, because he is. He's an awful human being. But I would never tell people don't watch Chinatown. It's a work of art. It's an absolutely amazing movie. So you can't hold this stuff against, and that's one of the problems with our hobby, or not just a hobby, but just society in general right now. It's become this huge. I mean, there's companies that hire people just to do deep dives on social media, just to find out what's this guy done. So look, I know a guy that used to be in politics that his job was to do deep dives on political opposition. And that's exactly what he did. He went and found, this is the days when the internet was just getting started. He would do deep dives to find out dirt on people, because that's what we do as a society. We judge people by things they've done in the past. Which shouldn't be part of why we consume literature or movies or entertainment, and even especially games. It shouldn't be the reason we play or don't play a game.
Right. I mean, and Chad's like, well, he says like, this has little to do with my idea of the vetting why this is a vetting. Well, you know what? You can vet people. And you can certainly, I vet Kickstarters, right? But I look at Kickstarters and I look for signs of, is this going to fleece me out of my fucking money? Because there are warning signs that you look for, right? And maybe the individual has fleeced people prior. Ken Whitman, it's not even alleged, all right? Ken, you've done it.
By the way, folks, all roads lead back to Ken Whitman. We can relate to Ken Whitman to anything.
Yeah,
all roads lead back to Ken Whitman.
I got
God,
fucking tag on the YouTube.
Oh, fun. Anyway, so our whole thing with the Gary Con thing, we love Gary Con, love going to Gary Con, and Luke actually had a show Friday, and embarrassingly, neither Eric or I were able to review it before this. I mean, I wanted to, and I just put it on the. It was like an hour and a half long. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I just saw the very beginning, but he kind of explained the policy and explained why it was in place. I don't think it's going to help. There's just too many ways to game the system. As Michael says, you can change your voice. You can have a friend stand up and say, I'm, XYZ person. And I don't know that it's going to help, but maybe for liability purposes, they're doing it because they can say, at least they did something. If this person pops in again and drops his trousers, I don't know what he's going to do. They can at least say, well, we tried to, we did our best to try to keep this guy out. Maybe they're afraid that if they didn't try to do their best to keep this guy out, that something bad would happen. They'd be liable for something. Like, oh, well, you knew this pervert had come to the con last year and you didn't try to keep him out this year. At least this way they can say, look, we've done everything humanly possible to keep this guy out of the con.
Here is the problem. All right. You're going by video. And listen, I've actually seen my double once in Streets of Manhattan. I did a double take because I thought I was walking past myself. I was like, that's me. All right. I was like, what the What
we're trying to go to con. I see 5 people look just like me. Everybody's pointing out, that guy looks like just you, Bad Mike. I think he does. He's an old fat white guy with a beard. Oh my god, that is me. Oh,
so here's the thing. What if you identify the wrong person as the person that is the one that you're trying to exclude? Then
that's
you've got
that's liability the other way. Yeah,
It's
you don't want
liability.
that.
Right. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But then again, what if you miss the person? What if you theoretically have low bandwidth and your picture comes through like an 8-bit
So those old-fashioned pictures we used to get in the old days, it was just like there was like all these little dots everywhere, like
right. Or it looks like an old analog TV signal like from like 80 miles away. You're stretching out trying to hold the antenna, and it's like, oh, okay. And the voice look, well, I don't know. I don't think it's
doesn't look like our last year's pervert or whatever he did.
We don't know what the person did.
We have no clue. We have no clue. No, we don't know.
We are 100% clueless. However, it doesn't stop us from making, wild guesses.
Right. That's what we're here for. We're here for wild guesses. This is what we're supposed to do.
So here's the deal. I personally, again, I understand why Gary Con is doing this. I think their goal is a good goal. I don't believe this method is going to achieve what they're looking for, especially since it was mentioned that there's going to be no ID required. You're not going to be required to hold up your passport or your driver's license or your state ID. It's just going to be a visual. All right, it ain't you. And I would. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. I don't play one in role-playing games. However, I have dealt with enough lawyers in my career to understand that sometimes taking an action to prevent something can put you liable if something does happen. But by not taking any action, you're not liable. That makes any sense.
No, because you're at that when that happens, you're admitting there's a problem. Before you could just feign innocence, like I didn't know that this would happen. And yeah, if you actually prepare for it, that means that you thought it might happen. It's weird, but you're right. You might be more liable for that than you would be for if you just act like you don't know what's going on and you're just not going to do anything at all. So that is, hopefully Gary Con has people advising him that. I don't think they do. I don't know. But this told him this is the best way to deal with the situation. It just sounds, a lot of it sounds kind of seat of the pantsy. Right. Look. So for those who know Gary Con, Luke lives in California. He doesn't live in Wisconsin, and he's a got a full-time job in the U.S. Army. He has had people. He's got other people in Wisconsin to help him with the convention, but he can't. He's not on call 24/7. You can't, call Luke up hey, we're going to do this, that. You kind of have to take initiative sometimes. So I don't know. I don't know who came up with this method to handle it. Maybe I kind of had the idea that it sounded like it was a great. It sounded like one of those ideas was a great idea when they were talking about it, throwing it around like, hey, let's do this and this, and then when it came time to implement it, like, oh, there's a lot of problems we didn't actually see. Darn it. Ooh, so it kind of sounds like one of those ideas. It was really great at the time. Then they started thinking about like, how are we going to vet 3,000 people on video?
Yeah, just got, well, maybe just do voice over internet protocol. And again, voice over internet, what, you're going to recognize a person's voice? It's so easy to change a voice. Dandelion games were somehow accurate or police lineups.
This turns out they're not very at all. We found out the last 20 years or so.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Can a police lineup give you probable cause to make an arrest? Like you have a suspect. Can a police lineup be enough to put that person in cuffs and deny them of their freedom? Yes, it can be. But you need to have the person that's making that identification not go, I think it's him. They got to be going, I know it's him. And preferably you have more than one witness who will independently make that observation. and sometimes, because you're going to have, when that lineup is done, usually you have a representative from, usually you have the defense lawyer and a prosecutor often in the room. And if it's the person going, it's number 3. Those lawyers might go,
yeah, prosecuting attorney's going, I don't like this. And defense attorney's going, yes, that sounds awesome. Yeah.
It's like, you know what? So yeah, police lineups are certainly, they're a good tool, but they're not going to get you a conviction on their own. That is for sure.
Yeah.
And here I'm gonna tell you how a quick story on how great observations are, and it's not from my time as a cop. I was on a jury before I was a cop, and it was a criminal case, and the person in question was caught with 1 foot in and 1 foot outside of a broken window with property from the residents in their hand. Okay? And when it came time there was no lineup ever done, because you don't need a lineup, right? The person was apparently caught in committing the act. He never took the stand. Neighbor claimed that he saw the person in a car, drive around the block a couple times before parking, then saw him going to the back. My fellow jurors argued for the better part of the day that the individual in question was homeless, looking for a place to stay, although it was never stated. Was misidentified, even though he was grabbed in the window, that the cops didn't actually grab the right person. It was fucking, and the worst part is our jury forewoman kept on. She watched too many movies, and this is going to be back in, it's like '89, and she wanted secret ballots each time when we did the votes, and it was the week before Memorial Day, so it was a holiday weekend, and we had people that were getting very upset because it looked like we were going to get sequestered.
Oh boy, yeah.
So I was like 20, and I was like, all right, listen. I need to have the judge explain certain things. So you have to get the court officer. It's like, can you have him explain the judge? I want the definition, because we already had him. And I go, I want the exact definition for criminal trespass. So he comes back and we get the definition. We go, well, criminal trespass means that you were in a location that you had no rights to be in, and you were never given permission. Criminal trespass. It's a misdemeanor. But we all agree he had no right to be there, no matter what the excuse was. Got 12 hands to go up. I'm like, all right, congratulations. You just convicted him of criminal trespass. Can I get the burglary charges given to us now? So getting back to go, all right, do we all believe that he was in the building? I go, I know there was a fire there prior, and that there was a couch in the front yard partially burned. I understand that. Do we all believe that this is a building? Yes. Burglary, 4th degree. Let's go on. Do we all agree that this building was a residence? The owner's son says he lived there. Do we believe the owner's son's testimony that he lived there, went out to buy milk, came back, and there was somebody in the house? Do we all doubt? Do anybody doubt that? No. All right. Criminal trespass, 3rd degree. All right. Let's go on. Let's go on to the criminal mischief charge. The broken window. I go, nobody heard the window break. Fire department was there 2 weeks earlier for a fire. The fire department may have broken the window. I have my doubts. And they're like, okay. Not guilty on that? Yeah. All right, good. You can all go home for the weekend.
We got 3 out of 4. Yay.
But that's the problem. People come into it with their own prejudice.
Okay, let me tell you my jury story. It's what's the same. So back when the Catholic Church was getting hammered because it turned out there was a lot of priests that were allowed to work after molesting people, and they just moved them around, right? They didn't really put them in jail or whatever. So this is during the height of that. So I was on a jury. There was a male pastor, not a priest, actually, a pastor, who was accused of having improper relations with somebody at their church.
Okay.
That's all we knew. That's all we knew going in. Okay. So this is just choosing the jury. Choosing the jury. They So they said this is what the trial, because the trial's about. Does anybody have any problem being removed? Well, some people couldn't deal with it because it was a minor. They're like, I can't stand when little children are molested, and so this went on. So a lot of people were asked to be off the jury because they didn't want to be on a jury, and so they all huddled together. They said, okay, we're going to let you know this. It was not a little child; it was a 17-year-old. So, we were like, okay. They immediately assumed it was a little child because they'd said it was a minor. So we were like, right. Okay. Well, I can stay on the jury then. I thought we were talking about like a 3-year-old or something. Like, no. So they went on. They said, and then so some people were like, well, I can't be on a jury because I don't believe in homosexuality. And so if you remember when the priest scandal came with the Catholic Church, it was mostly priests that were molesting like choir boys or little men or little guys that worked at the priest. It wasn't, a lot of it was not male on female, it was male on male, right?
Right, because they didn't have young girls.
So immediately jumped to this position that this was a case about a pastor who molested a boy. And so they had to get whisper. Okay. We're going to let you know it was a female. It wasn't a male. Oh, okay. It's not homosexual then. Okay. Well, I'm okay then. This kept going on and on because people were assuming things that had never been discussed because they were making everything go to their preconceived notions. So because they knew priests molested little kids, so immediately this must be a little kid and the priest must molest a boy. I don't know. And it turned out the case was, it was a hung jury because, and I was one of the people that voted for not guilty because I don't like to send somebody on jail on what was basically a he said, she said case. That's what it was. It was a girl was 17. There was a statute of limitations, 7 years. She waited until she was 24 years old, right before the statute of limitations was up, and she accused the priest of molesting her. I'm sorry, the pastor. Right. He adamantly denied it and would not settle, he said, I did not do this. Turned out the girl had a history of mental illness. She was a heavy abuser of drugs. Now, the prosecution did bring into effect that, well, maybe she was had mental problems and drug abuse because this priest had molested her, but this had all happened when she was like earlier. So she was already had mental illness problems. So it was just too dicey. I couldn't put the guy away for that. I really couldn't. Did I think he was guilty or not? I really didn't think he was, but I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I just know that it was not worth putting. But the amount of speculation in that jury room was insane about what happened. And we had to keep going. We had to keep having them read off the testimony because people were remembering things that weren't said at trial. And I was just amazing. It blew me away the amount of speculation people. And one of the girls on the jury, one of the ladies on the jury, she was actually booted from our jury because she waited all the way in there to hear the trial to get in there and say, well, I don't believe children ever lie. So she must have obviously told the truth because children never lie. And then we asked, do you have children? Yes, and they've never lied to me. So we called the judge, and the judge said, yeah, she's off. She's gone because I can't have her. So this is a counterpoint. This is the same thing as Eric's story. People will assume this is what happened with this whole thing with GaryCon is people, their minds immediately went to the craziest thing they could imagine.
Because you got to fill in those blanks. And
we're filling in blanks right and left.
Blanks. Their intentions weren't bad. Their goals were good, but they stated it in a manner that people went with my preconceived notion. I want people vetted at cons. Well, they're vetting people at cons. I don't want to be vetted at cons. Yeah. They're vetting at cons.
So some people said they're going, good, they should vet people at cons because I don't want racist, pervert, psychopaths at cons. And then the other people are sitting like, well, I don't want to be vetted at con because I don't know your criteria for vetting me. Is it going to be because this or that? And then the whole thing was they weren't vetting anybody anyway, the way it was getting vetted. So it was just all this gigantic exercise and lunacy. I mean, there's some lessons here, though. And some of the lessons, I think, are, number one, you need to have people working your site that have a clear mission statement. In other words, if this happens on the site, shut it down until somebody that knows what they're doing can get there. Or if this happens, you're allowed to say this, this, and this. Don't speculate. Don't go on and say, yeah, vetting would be great. Boy, we should be vetting. Don't make up stuff because you don't know the answer. And that's, I don't know if that was what happened, but I got the impression that was a huge part of the Gary Con F up, was that people were just immediately assuming that, well, since this person's on the page and they're saying this, they must work for Gary Con. I still don't know who said what worked for Gary Con, or if they're just some rando that was just throwing out stuff.
I suspect it was randos that were telling people who
Sure.
didn't want to be, you don't want to be vetted? Well, go fuck yourself. And, we don't want you there anyway. The con's too crowded. And less people is better.
Right.
Again, what you need to lock that stuff down. I think it's a learning experience for Gary Con. And I think part of the issue too is they've gotten so large is that you have such impassioned people that go to this convention that immediately the thought became from some people, this is their way of weeding out people that make the con less crowded, or I think both sides thought that this is a way to weed out people to lower the But now take a look at the flip side of this. Gamehole just put out an announcement about Gamehole for October of this year, 2021, and it's not long. I'm going to read it real quick. As you likely can imagine, we are asked about whether or not we will have a show this year. Often, and our answer has been, hopefully so. But to be clear, the condition precedent that must be met before we'd even be allowed to have a show is that COVID-19 vaccine distribution would have to get to the point where everyone who wanted a vaccine was able to get one. As our dates for this year are October 21st through the 24th, we are cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to host a show this year. But please do keep in mind that the Public Health Medicine will have to give the green light to mass gatherings before we can open our doors. Obviously, we have no control over that. So assuming that we are able to have a show, what might it look like? Well, if vaccines are prevalent, hopefully we'll not have to change too many things. But keep in mind that some possible components could include mandatory mask wearing, providing proof of vaccination, temperature checks at the door. Again, we do not know what sort of requirements public health will have for us by then, but we wanted to at least let you know where we were in the process. Finally, we do not have any new dates to announce at this point. Once we have more progress on the vaccine rollout, we will announce the opening of our housing block, game submission, bed registration, and so on. We hope to have a formal calendar put together and announce it to you all in the next 60 days. That, no surprises, right? You're being given all the information. We're not even taking your money yet. We don't even have plans yet to take your money. And we're giving you all the information we can as to what's going on with the convention.
And one of the best parts is that they're saying, look, this isn't us. We're going to throw the city and the state and the county under the bus. That this isn't, don't blame us if things go wrong, which is the thing to do. That way it doesn't come back on you. You're not doing anything that you're not allowed to by law. The law says this, we're going to do what the law says. We're not going to, do anything different than the law says. And I think that's a good strategy to have. That way it doesn't come back on you saying, well, we're saying you can do this. Oh, well, it turns out you can't do this because the county says you can't. Oh, well, we told you this, but we lied to you.
Right. And again, there's no surprise. And they're even telling you pretty much with this is that, hopefully in 60 days, we'll be able to start setting the con up. But even that might be, iffy. They may have to say, yeah, we'll have to refund your money because we can't do the con. It's going to come down to that. I appreciate the blunt honesty of that statement from Alex, because it's not easy. When you start putting out a statement that is iffy, you are potentially hurting your bottom line, because now people could be going, all right, well, there's probably not.
Yeah, do I really want to go to, I don't know if I want to buy a ticket to Gamehole now because I might not be able to go, but that's a good strategy to tell the truth and just say, look, here's, we did that in North Texas last year. Look, we told people, over and over again. We actually told people, don't come if you're old and you think you might catch COVID. Don't come. We don't want you here. We're not going to say this is a safe place and there's no way you can get sick here. We don't know. We're going to mandate mask wearing. We're going to have distancing, but we would prefer you not show up rather than show up and you get sick and then blame us and say, "Oh, well, I got sick because you guys said it was okay to go." Alex, but Alex is a smart dude. He's a lawyer. He's got all his ducks in a row. He runs a great con, and he knows this stuff is it is all up in the air. You don't know what might happen between now and October. I know he really wants to put a con on because he loves putting a con on. He's going to do whatever necessary to put that con on, whether it means probably less people this year, whether it means having to check at the door for temperature. I mean, look, they honestly probably should check the door for probably everybody should be checked for temperature anyway. We did it in North Texas last year. We had one of those little things you put on your your forehead, check temperature.
Right.
You know what? They should just have that anyway. Nothing makes me madder than somebody going to a convention sick and getting 10 other people sick at the convention. You shouldn't be going to convention if you're sick. Yeah. Why are you going to convention if you're sick? I don't care if you spent money on tickets or rooms or whatever. Tough. Don't get me sick because you had to go and you have to cough all over your miniatures and your dice and the table and everything, So I don't have any problem with that. But, they're going to do everything necessary to have the con. It's always good to be really upfront about those things because we had a lot of people last year that were really frustrated with North Texas, but we told him look, Doug is doing chemo and he's been doing chemo for 3 years. He'll probably be doing it for the rest of his life, however long his life is. He is always going to have a depressed immune system, and we don't want him to catch COVID, and we don't want him to get sick, period, with anything, but we definitely don't want to catch COVID. So whatever steps necessary to keep Doug safe, that's what we're going to do at the con. And then when we tell people that, they would go along with it, because we weren't saying you're going to do this because we told you to do it. We're saying, look, this is going to make Doug sick. Do you want to get Doug to get sick? No, you don't. Everybody loves Doug. So, you don't want to come if you're sick. And people were like, they were only too happy to agree to our conditions when we told them this is for safety and it's mostly to keep Doug healthy. And, and that's, I think, the way you approach it is you don't say, we're going to do this because we can do it. And if you don't do this, you're a miserable human. You say, look, do you really want some of our older, do you want Tim Cass to get sick? No. Do you want Jim Ward to get sick? No. Don't come to the con if you're sick, because we don't want these legends of our hobby. The last thing that happens to them is they got sick and they died at Gary Con or Gamehole Con. So when you approach it in that way, I think people are much better about dealing with, little impositions like wearing masks or, sanitizing their hands or having distance, that if you tell them you're just doing this because we're telling you to do it, damn it. And you just listen. And if you don't do it, then don't come to our con, get out of here.
But like Doug was always ahead of the curve. What my first North Texas RPG con, I had hand sanitizer in my goodie bag.
He was always big on Doug's always been big on putting hand sanitizer.
I always assumed, I'm getting the hand sanitizer so I can wipe off the maps.
We have a lot. We still have hundreds left over, by the way. We have
this is so I can easily wipe off the dry erase marker. That's nice. That was very thoughtful. No, that's not what it was. And it was actually to be. I never got sick at North Texas.
I never have either. I got con credit Gary Con one year, but honestly, it's in February in Wisconsin, so that's everybody's sick and they're coughing and blah. It's gross. Somebody.
I got last year at TotalCon. I came down with my viral infection.
Oh God, yes.
Which set off the rest of the year, which in the end I guess was a good thing.
We're gonna have to give Angela, when we have Angela on the show next month, we're gonna have to give her a hard time about that because she almost killed you, man. That's her fault.
Almost killed me.
I blame her
in a good way, because the other option could have been just not waking up one morning. So this was good. This brought it to the surface.
Oddly enough, it worked out perfectly for you. That's the crazy part about getting sick all in 2020.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, I've lost some weight. I've put on a little muscle working out.
Look at those guns.
Yeah, well, when you play the Nintendo Switch.
Oh yeah, you're just man, working out my thumbs. I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I'm doing the boxing now. It's like, yeah, man. I want to get into a bar fight. No, I don't. But if I get into a bar fight, at least I'll be able to, like, maybe land a punch or two before I get my ass kicked.
There you go. Well, hopefully that's not a. Hey, by the way, I heard they're opening the restaurants in New York again. Way to go, Blasio! Open them now when everybody's dying.
Dude, I didn't even hear that.
Oh yeah, no, he wants to reopen everything. Now he wants to reopen everything when the deaths are like through the roof. Now you can go out to eat. But before, no, we didn't want them to be open before. That guy he's a disaster, Eric. He's a disaster.
Actually, it was Como. It's not de Blasio.
Oh, I thought, okay. I get them mixed up because they're both disasters.
Well, no, and there's a reason for it. Oh, New York City restaurants do open by the end of the week. Holy crap.
Yeah, there you go, man. Go to your tavern, man. See what's going on.
I probably saw. Maybe I'll go. Like they open the doors at like 11:45, and I'll come in with Rage. We'll go my pub that has some seating in the back that we call the confessional, because it's surrounded by like faux stained glass, but it's like a cubby, and I was like, this is perfect. It's all in the back. We're away from people, and I could probably be COVID free.
You probably could.
But no, now I know why. When we drove by the pub, I saw them cleaning up the outdoor seating.
Well, I'm just glad they're going to reopen again. That's because so many businesses didn't make it. We had some of my favorite restaurants closed this year. I'm so depressed. But yeah, a lot of them were able to stay up. Texas was a lot different, though. We were a lot more lenient on things opening, and so I think it helped the economy a lot. And that we had very few restaurants go under nearby. They're also they're real proactive about. See, the great thing about Texas is everything's far apart, so you have to drive everywhere anyway. You can't take the subway, you can't take the bus. There's no public transit, so you get used to driving anywhere anyway. So when they said, "Hey, we're gonna have takeout only," everybody's like, "Okay." We'll just drive over there, pick up our food, and drive back. It wasn't any big deal. Whereas
right.
I would assume in New York, you're used to walking everywhere, right? You walk down here, you walk over here.
Well, for me, I had let's see, I had a Spanish bakery and a pizzeria, literally a block and a half from the house. Both are closed. The pizzeria owns the building because they bought it from my grandmother back in the day. But they haven't opened up even when they could have, so I don't think they're coming back. They all have health issues. They're older.
Too bad.
They're older with health issues. The pub has been when they went to just outdoor seating, it was too cold for them to stay open. Other places are doing takeout. Or you have an Ecuadorian place that's doing takeout and a Thai place that's doing takeout. But if you don't have indoor seating, there really is nothing nearby in walking distance. Like today, I had to rush and get my car inspected before the end of the month, and afterwards I told Ray, "Hey, let's go get some lunch." What do? Wendy's drive-thru. How fucking exciting is that? Well,
that's piss poor.
Yeah, but I mean, really, we're well, and again, I understand those of you who are in high risk. I've got congestive heart failure. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I'm a Hodgkin survivor, which affects your immune system. So I am probably the trifecta for, pick me, Mr. COVID. Yeah. Pick me, Mr. COVID. I don't want.
You should be high. You should be high up on the shot list then, or higher than some.
No, I'm for New York State. I'm 2A. So my parents get their shot tomorrow. The first shot, and Rach should have had her shot, but then her job was told by the state that only people going back to the office can get their shots. So then she had to cancel, and then 2 days later, the state was like, "Oh no, we misinterpreted the federal rule. Everybody should get to reopen the offices, and now you can't find an appointment for shit." So, by the way, I'm hoping I get my 2 shots in before North Texas.
So here, let me throw something out there real quick. I gonna pimp something since we're rounding up on our 2-hour mark here. Tomorrow night, YouTube, we a Mr. Greg Gillespie, who is the author of Barrel Maze, Forbidden Caverns of Archaea, Floating Dungeons of Highfell, and I are going to do a new podcast, and this came about because Greg wanted to start doing a podcast. He didn't know much about it. He got me. Now, what he didn't understand is the technical aspect. I'm probably worse than anybody in the world because Eric handles all the technical
And
aspects.
it's not. This is the best technical. I can handle it.
So he thought that I could do. So I'm like, hey, dude. So he said, well, should we do this at Zoom, Twitch? I said, whatever you think will get the most people. So he said, let's do YouTube because YouTube seems to be the easiest. He thinks he's going to figure it out. He figured it out, but it's going to be even cruder than this show in terms of we might just totally go off the air or have like no sound or God knows what. But he wants to learn how to use the technology because he wants to become a player in the podcast game. And if you've heard Greg on our show, we were talking to him. He's extremely educated man. He's a college professor that teaches a class in RPGs, our dream job. You might have heard me refer to him as my man crush because he is got the perfect job of all jobs ever. He teaches RPGs at college in Canada. And so we're gonna try it. I guess he's straight man since he's the smart professor. I'm gonna be the clown. It's kind of like this. Eric and I were, the same thing. He's straight. He's straight man, the clown.
We interchange that role.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it's a natural handoff. I was like, all right, Mike, I'm gonna be the clown. You gotta be the straight man.
I can't see Greg being the clown. Greg is not the clown ever. So it's gonna be a different show. We're gonna talk about the OSR. Now here's the fun part. I asked Greg when we talk about it, he goes, I like yours and Eric's idea of a hex crawl. And I was like, really? So we are movers and shakers in the podcast community. So it's going to be an OSR hex crawl. I don't even have any idea what we're going to talk about. We're just going to talk about the OSR. We're probably going to talk about, just introduce ourselves. Greg's going to talk about his projects. He's also got a new project. He's working on the next installment of his Mega Dungeon series. I think he's eventually going to have 6 in all. No, 5 in all. He's working on number 4 now. And so, yeah, we're going to do it tomorrow night. It's going to be, I want to say, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Central.
7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern is what I remember reading.
And then, so it's going to be a little earlier than this show if you're in the Central market. But, just follow the links.
8 p.m. We do 8 p.m. Eastern.
No, we do 8 p.m. Oh, yeah, we do. That's right. It's the same as the show. Never mind. I get mixed up. But yeah, so if you have a chance, come check us out tomorrow. At least give us some moral support because I mean, we don't know what the elf we're doing. I mean, Eric and I really kind of don't know what we're doing, but we've done it enough now. See, that's the whole thing is I partnered with Eric because I know Eric had done like 15,000 podcasts, and so I knew that he knew what he was doing. Well, neither Greg or I have any clue what we're doing. So this could be an absolute hilarious, escapade.
I might have to check in before.
Because you have Hangout, you have a Discord Hangout tomorrow, I know. But it might be a flop like last week. I think people got burned out by the political situation here in the States, and nobody was in the mood to talk. It's like, fuck it. I need to get drunk and slide under a table. It's gonna take a while for people are gonna be back to quote unquote normal. So we'll see, I guess.
Well, keep your live streams going. Friday night, myself and Glenn Hallstrom, Old Man Grognard, we are going to be joined by Biggest Geekus, at least half of Biggest Geekus.
Oh, nice.
It's not both of Biggest Geekus, because they were talking about the OSR, asked some questions about, on my voicemail for the Tavern Chat podcast, which I addressed, but Glenn has them coming on the show, so you know what? I don't know where it's going to get, although I do have permission from Glenn to say, shut up, Glenn, if Glenn doesn't shut up. So,
not that Glenn talks or anything a lot. We know this. Oh, by the way, our show is called OSR Gaming Blether, BLETHER. Look up Blether is a great word that we don't use enough. I looked it up, and it's a long-winded pontification. I think that's a great word, blether. I wish I'd been able to use that word before that. So it's going to be OSR Gaming Blether. I guess we're going to talk about OSR stuff, and kind of like Eric does, we do this show. It's mostly current events, and then he does Iron Rations, which is more talking about gaming rules.
D&D with Joe the Lawyer, and Glenn and I. You know what? We go with
who knows what? Yeah. But Gaming Blether will be more, I think, more educational, because honestly, seriously, I'm not joking. Greg Gillespie is a professor who teaches RPG.
Yeah.
So we may all learn some really cool stuff just listening to him go on and on about, get RPGs and how they're written and the history. And I'll just be there to throw in, whatever clown stuff I can throw in.
How about that Wired article there? Hey.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I have been playing D&D since 1978. I have been selling stuff online since 1992. Believe it or not, right when AOL got big. So I've been in the community a long time. I've been going to conventions since the 80s. So I do know about the OSR. It's not just about, goofing around. And I run a convention. So I can hold my own. I'm not quite the intellectual that Greg is, but I've got some good theories about stuff I'd like to throw out there about the OSR. Probably our first thing is going to be doing that eternal question about how do you define the OSR, which is always a just absolute ass whipping when somebody throws that out there, because then you have like 8 million different answers, right? What is the OSR? Well, it's one thing, it's another, it's this. Oh, the time for is 7 p.m. Central. If you go to the, I wonder if we can post a link. I have a link here. Can I? Oh, I can't post this link.
Why not?
Well, I don't know how to do it. That's how, because I don't know how. Let me give you the link, Eric. Maybe you can post it for me. It says live in 21 hours. So do your math and figure that one out, and we'll.
All right, are you sending this to me on the Facebook? Are you sending this to me within the app here?
I'm going to send it to you in the Facebook because I'm not sure I can. Oh wait, I can send it to you in the app. You're right. See, what did I tell you? I don't know what I'm doing. I have no clue what I'm doing. So I'm going to send it to you in private chat. How's that look?
Oh, apparently you should be able to just post it into the chat.
Oh, no, I can't. No, because I'm not logged in.
Oh, that's right. You aren't. All right. Yep, you're right.
And I tried to log in before in your private chat. And that's the link. So, yeah, just come by and say hi or just, see what we're talking about. It may just be the biggest disaster ever. It could be the most brilliant thing you've ever seen. We won't know. We'll do it a while, but definitely, it will definitely entertain on some level.
Very cool. Now, in 2 weeks from Friday, we will have not Matt Jackson, but others from the old gaming group, including Tim Shorts, on with Joe the Lawyer and myself. For
good old Tim.
Yes, Matt Jackson should be the first person on because it was Matt's idea. But, he's ducking and weaving. He's a better boxer than I am. So he's like, not me. Fuck you. I volunteer everybody else. And
we're sitting here. We're only a few weeks away from our Total Con extravaganza, too. We need to start looking at that guest list again and start maybe firming up some Total Con guests here. I mean, we kind of threw out who we'd like to see. So we need to firm that up. Maybe give guys like Alan Hammock a call and see what is up, bro. Like to have you on the show.
Alan would be a great guest to have.
Oh, that guy's awesome. Maybe one of those, maybe that Matt Finch guy, although he's actually quite shy. I don't think he may not want to come on.
Yeah, he doesn't do videos at all.
Maybe that'll Alyssa Fadden lass.
Maybe.
But no, she's really shy. She's very shy. So I don't know. We probably couldn't get her.
I think for that Friday we'll probably it'll be the unholy, not Trinity. Could be four. It's going to be you, Glenn, Joe, and myself.
Oh,
I mean, if you want to see something go off the fucking rails,
insane.
Yes, I think that might be the highlight of the 4 days.
As much as I talk, I wouldn't be able to get a word in edgewise. As much as I would be sitting there like waiting for the pause and breath just so I could jump in because it would be ridiculous.
Well, see, Mike, that's when I use my Uber powers and start using the mute button.
Start muting people. So Glenn's just sitting there. We're just like all talking around Glenn. Oh,
but that should be fun. Wow. Well, we have hit the 2 hour mark just about.
I think we hit everything we wanted to hit too.
and a few others,
we hex crawled way off. We went off the map. The DM had to go in the back and draw new levels and roll his dice.
Yeah,
come back.
Everybody take a personal break. Go out, smoke your cigarettes if you got them. Maybe walk down to the pizzeria and grab a slice. I need 15 minutes. You come back and it's like, all right, we're ready. Now we go. But we don't have the 15 minutes because we're fucking live. Yep. So this is why I love improv as a GM, because it keeps it exciting. If we had a script, it would fucking suck.
Oh yeah, script. Nobody want. Yeah, I don't want to ever do that. I immediately look at a show that has a script, and it just as much as I love some people that do scripted shows, my interest level drops immensely when they're like, okay, this is the part of our show where we do the reviews, and this is the part where we talk about this, and we're gonna okay, do we give it 4 thumbs up or 3? I'm like, I don't care.
I give it 4 toys. I mean,
4 dice pips, or you give it 1 through 6 dice pips. This is the time of the show we have to review things, and we're going to do our interview of the week. And this week we have people on, special guests on. We don't do interviews. We just say we're just going to start talking. You just hang on for the ride, and then just let's roll. So
right, and some are literally hanging on for the ride, and then some of them just go, "Fuck you, give me the steering wheel. Mm-hmm. I'm in charge."
Oh yeah.
Greg is kind of that later type. Greg has no problem stepping up, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I might have to come along and abuse you guys.
We'll try to jump in and say hi. We'll try to entertain you. I don't know what it's going to be like. Like I said, this is even less prepared than when you and I did a show. So I have no clue what Greg and I are talking about. So we're just going to give it a shot. We may not be able to get the thing to work. I don't know. Maybe Greg can't even figure out how to do streaming. I have no clue. So we may be in big trouble tomorrow. But
that makes it more fun.
Yeah, the live stream. Maybe. I might be a little nervous. You never know. I might have to do a little drinky poo right before, so I might have to pull out some old granddad just to make. Oh, look how low that bottle's gotten.
Oh yeah, you might need more tomorrow. I mean, I had 2 Corona premieres. This is not a sponsored shot. Just went back to my first beer in a month and a half. So nice. It felt good going back. Back to beer, away from the wine for a bit. Folks, we've touched on COVID. COVID is affecting conventions, obviously. It's affecting GaryCon. That's why it's virtual. It may affect Gamehole. It'll have an effect on some level on North Texas. It's definitely affecting TotalCon. We are not medical professionals. We do not give medical advice. All I'm going to say is use your common sense. You have common sense. You tend to claim your fucking characters have common sense. They never just walk in there. I know what it sounds like what I said, but my character would never do anything so stupid. They wouldn't turn on the gas if my friend Muggsy was in the oven.
You might, Rabbit. You might.
But use your common sense, all right? That's an ability you have that is often underused, and that's all I'm asking. Aside from that, be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice, and God willing, I'll be back tomorrow. And if you are on Discord, Tenkar's Tavern Discord, we do we call it Tavern Chat. That's where the podcast got its inspiration. We just hang out and talk to shit. So we might even get a post live stream mic to come in.
Oh, maybe. Dear. Yeah, recovering from our disaster. I mean, our
Mike would just be like, "Oh fuck, I'm tired. Oh, I'm exhausted." So, but yeah, you got a lot of stuff. Folks.
I'll be honest. I can listen to Greg Gillespie talk all day. That's why he's my man crush, because he's just so erudite and just so intelligent. So I may just be sitting there like this the whole time, just like, tell me some more. Tell me more, Greg. Tell me about the history of RPGs.
Folks, if you enjoy this live stream, go to youtube.com/Eric Tenkar. If you're listening live or later as a recording, please subscribe, like it. If you listen to Greg Gillespie's live stream tomorrow and you like it, you can't do anything better than subscribing. It's the best thing you can do.
Mm-hmm. Thumbs up, subscribe. Yes.
Yep. All right, folks. On that note, we are out of here. Mike and I will see you again next week.